Hi there, I'm Anna from Astral Hygiene. Today I'm going to be talking to you about cross-contamination and how to avoid it. So many of you run catering establishments, professionals' kitchens, etc. But there are a few who, are just starting out with a cafe and do need some kind of, hints and tips to kind of make sure that you are putting all of your ducks in a row to make sure that you would pass an environmental health inspection, you're in line with the Food Standards Agency, etc. So today I'm going to be talking about cross-contamination, what is it and how we can avoid it. So cross-contamination is contamination with your equipment, which will ultimately end up in food, which could ultimately end up in food poisoning for your customers. So cross-contamination is when bacteria or microorganisms end up in your food, and that can make us all very unwell and can hinder your reputation, which should be a concern for everybody, but the overall health of the public should also be a concern too. So how do we avoid cross-contamination? So Food Standards Agency have published some really good and robust guidelines. So have a look at the Food Standards Agency website, have a look at our blog, because we've done a whole series on the environmental health, the 5 ways to pass your environmental health inspection, which is always a really good place to start. I've also done a video on kind of running a catering business from home and some of the kind of ways that you can get around not having a double sink, etc. But today we're just going to stick to the basics. So it's about having separate chopping boards for each area and making sure for each food substance. So for one for fish, one for food, one for meat, one for fruit and veg, etc. So making sure that they're all separated and you've got a colour for each one, and there's a sign on the wall that says, red is for raw meat, white is for fish, green is for fruit and vegetables. It doesn't have to be those colours, but just as long as your colours are on the wall so that everyone can see what colours you use for which chopping boards. So if somebody's off sick and you have to get in a replacement, they can see exactly what colours you would use for which kinds of food. You need to make sure that all of your utensils are being washed thoroughly in between use, for example, like knives for red meat and fish, and they must go through a double sink. So into the first sink to be washed with a bubbly washing up liquid, and into the second sink for either sterilisation with a bactericidal detergent or straight into the machine dishwash, because thermal disinfectant is always trumps any kind of chemical that we can put in there into your sink, because people make mistakes. But thermal disinfection, as long as your machine dishwash is running at a very, very hot temperature, over 60 degrees, then you shouldn't have any bacteria that will survive that. So as long as we are including people into the equation, that's when mistakes happen. So in a sink, soil removed with a bubbly washing up liquid, and then either sterilised for 5 minutes with a bactericidal detergent at the right dilution rate, read the back of your bottle, or straight into your machine dishwash for disinfection. So that's kind of one way that you would avoid cross-contamination. Obviously make sure that the health of the food in your fridge is appropriate. Is it all labelled? Has it got all the dates on it? Has it got your day dots on it, so that you know what days your food was put in? If you're preparing food in advance, that needs to be labelled very clearly also, to make sure that, again, if there's a replacement in the kitchen, they know when that was made, etc. You need to make sure that you're using the right cloths, ones that don't harbour bacteria. Plenty of blue centrifuge within your kitchen to make sure that the way that you're wiping things up is hygienic. There's nothing worse than a dirty old cloth that's full of bacteria being dragged over your surfaces. No. And also you do need either a super concentrated or a ready to use bactericidal spray or an antibactericidal spray. In a commercial kitchen, cafe, working from home, catering from home, professional kitchen, etc., it must be BSEN 1276 at the very least. I would recommend you have a BSEN 1276, which is bacteria killing the hard surface killing E. coli, MRSA, Staphylococcus, all the nasties that will create food poisoning, plus one that is BSEN 14476. So 14476 is viruses. They must have a 4-log reduction, so 99.9999. There's a 9 missing, it's not past the accreditation, and if it's not past the accreditation, you're in trouble with the Environmental Health and the Food Standards Agency. And it must, if it's in a food environment, must not have a scent, because